Hello and welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, India's only daily television platform for small businesses. We bring you the right information to empower you, the SME entrepreneur. I'm Sunanda Jayaseelan, and on today's show, we bring you highlights for panel discussion from Raipur, discussing how to make manufacturing smart. The Leaders of Tomorrow is India's only television show to travel across the length and breadth of the country, meeting face-to-face with entrepreneurs, understanding your concerns and issues and thoughts and queries. We were in Raipur recently talking about making manufacturing smart. Take a listen to some of the key highlights that came out of that panel discussion.
Raipur, as we know, has been inducted under the Government of India's Smart City mission. But is it even justified to talk about smart cities when our country's towns and villages are struggling for the very basics? Professor Rawani, is the conversation about smart cities, smart manufacturing, so on and so forth, justified at this stage? Or do we need to look at our country more holistically and correct some of the problems that are occurring at the ground level?
Smart city is a different concept where we are talking about saving in energy and all, whereas we are talking about smart manufacturing, where the systems and people are connected together. It is a real-time information delivery. You are getting the information whenever it is needed, in whatever form it is needed, so as to take the proper decision. So that is the smart manufacturing. It is basically needed in the Industry 4.0. It is the industrialization, fourth revolution of the industrialization, where we are talking more about the artificial intelligence, robotics, and so many other things. As far as the Raipur as a smart city, smart manufacturing is concerned, definitely a lot of challenges are there. Particularly if I talk about the skill, and the skill is an important aspect as far as the smart manufacturing is concerned, in addition to all other aspects.
And Mohit, help me define what the smart manufacturing means, or what it ought to mean for that matter. Is it maximizing manufacturing throughput? Is it minimizing energy consumption? Is it automation? Is it sort of minimizing the capital, the contribution rather of human capital? Help us understand what it means and therefore how we get there.
It is not only about your processes. It also takes into account your automation of IT systems, then talking about good financial management, using a good kind of systems for operations, okay, or using a good kind of system for marketing. These are some of few things which have been missing in Indian companies, where they have been doing things very religiously, but they are not upgrading them to a different level.
And I think you bring up some excellent points, Mohit. And the reason smart manufacturing even matters to this city is because it has the potential to diversify this city's economy. And that leads me to my next question. Where do SMEs fit into all of this? Does smart manufacturing potentially open the door for new entrants and SMEs in particular to become bigger players, bigger contributors?
For me, what I believe is, now talking about all these technology changes that have come, when you are a large corporation, it is very, very difficult for you to change, right? Because your processes have all been set up, all these workflows have been designed, so it is difficult to change. But with Raipur, because we have a lot of SMEs, the kind of changes that we can do right now, that changes potential is huge. And it has been always been the law of the market that the one who changes is able to sustain himself or herself.
Isn't some of the industries that Raipur is most well known for, whether it be iron manufacturing, its steel mills, so on and so forth, or all major cement manufacturers have a significant presence here, Ambuja, Grasim, cement, so on and so forth. Those are not the industries that are typically known for change, right? So what role is change really contributing to this success factor that these industries have built their legacy on?
Raipur is very well known city for having the natural minerals and available resources. So that's why the most of the manufacturing units, industries which have grown here in the last 1 decade have been either into power, steel, cement, and so on. But the next generation of the entrepreneurs, they understand, and the vision is very clear that the next the next few decades will not be these industries which will be leading the global economy, or they might be able to contribute with this into national scenario or a global scenario. And definitely the next generation actually focuses on to that kind of market from here, because growth is one part of their agenda. And that is the way they can grow, and that is where the smart manufacturing comes into play. So for me, smart manufacturing is nothing but just the maximum output out of the optimum resources which can be used, and using the latest technology, of course. So we have been having a history of jumping the economies when it comes to Indian economy, while the developed countries have done it in steps. So far, the development has been only limited to these mineral focused industries. But the next generation definitely is working towards the next solutions, and that is where the opportunity lies. The only question is that people are still trying to search what are those opportunities. And it is in every sector, I guess so, because this is the era of the globalization. Anyone can do from anywhere, and geographical limits are not at all a limit.
The literacy rate for this city is, I believe, 87, 88%, which is significantly higher than the national average of closer to 73%. That would imply that, there's a creme de la creme workforce being cultivated here every day. So what I'd like to understand is, do you find that to be true in the context of your individual company?
We are lacking the acceptance of new technology. I am working from last 10 years. I am in manufacturing industry, and I have met with so many SMEs. Still, the acceptance of new technology is very less compared to other states, due to lack of financial supports, due to lack of skills.
Professor Rawani, what would you attribute that to, the resistance towards embracing technology within the DNA of an organization, be it small or large?
Is not only the automation within a factory, is connecting the whole, you can say, the supply chain, starting from the raw material supply to the customer. All are connected in the smart manufacturing. The information flow is there. So in that aspects we have to think about, where the technology is properly understood, adopted, and properly utilized.
Yeah, Professor, would love your take. Is Raipur simply an excellent place to receive an education, but it doesn't have the same success retaining that talent?
Yeah, the point of discussion is that whether the brain drain is there or not, that is first thing. If I talk about the literacy, when we say the literacy, there are two important aspects in that. First is the education, and second is the skill. We are providing the education, but probably we are not providing the skill. Now, what is the difference? Education is something, is the knowledge, and the skill is application of that knowledge. So educational institutes are probably lagging in providing the skill to the students, and because of that, they are not properly fit, or they are not employable. So there are job seekers, and there are the persons who are employable. So job seekers are so many, but they are not finding the job suitable to them. And this is the reason for the brain drain. If I talk about the Raipur, as is said that brain drain is there, the people are moving to Hyderabad. Yes, Hyderabad, Bangalore, Pune. The one reason may be they are not finding the job suitable to them here, because the Chattisgarh may not be providing the proper opportunity for them.
So, this brain drain, if it is in fact unavoidable, right? If I were to look at the conversation through the lens of an SME, perhaps their complaints would be, in addition to lack of skill development opportunities, perhaps it's access to capital, it's access to mentorship. For the SME or the startup that's based in Raipur, what sort of resources are available at their disposal?
Raipur has one of the second largest incubation center across the Asia. It's named as 36 INC, one of the best facilities. One of the best of the future leaders are working there in startups. And in next few years, there are definitely going to be some big noises out of those kind of facilities from here. Apart from that, government earlier has worked pretty well. The central government was, their strategy and their vision was aligned with the development of the startup. Apart from that, the state government has put it up several efforts as well. And on top of that, institutes like NIT, IIIT, AIMS, and IIMs, they all are coming up with so many entrepreneurship cells of their own centers of incubation and all. This is the right time for any entrepreneur, any SME to start in Raipur, thinking about the change, thinking about doing something else which is not a traditional thing. And I think that's the way it will grow.
Well, say an SME or a startup wants to knock on the doors of one of these entrepreneurial cells or these incubation centers. What I'd like to understand are, what are the eligibility criteria? You know, and Achal, from your experience, do they have to have a fully baked management team? Do they have to have a product that's in prototype phase? You know, do they have to be well beyond proof of concept? Do they have to be profitable? What does it take to be heard and acknowledged?
So the thing is, I would actually divide the kind of product or anything you have in two sectors, whether you are a startup or a non-startup. Now with startup, what happens is the government of India has a specific definition of startup, and DIPP, which has recently been renamed, it gives you a specific name as a DIPP registration number if you are a startup. But whether you are eligible for a startup or not, you can actually knock the doors of, whether you talk about IIMs or NITs or 36 INC, all of them are very, very open. So even if you have a small concept, it does not matter whether it is just an idea or it's a concept or you have a prototype or you already have a team. You've got all kinds of startups, you've got all kinds of businesses in 36 INC if you just visit there. And what I've realized is they are very, very open. So the openness is never a problem. I mean, whenever you need help, in fact, there are much less people who actually, I've found less people getting for help there rather than number of people who are ready to help.
Time for a break. On the other side, we'll continue bringing you highlights of that panel discussion from Raipur. Just stay tuned. Welcome back with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow, and tonight on the show we are talking about Raipur making manufacturing smart.
So does that speak to a lack of awareness of the resources available, or does that speak to a lack of trust, a lack of transparency, a lack of belief in the system? You know, what would you identify as the bottlenecks? And I'll direct that question to you, Mohit.
Two things here. First, if we talk about what is needed for a success for SME and where they can access their needs. So from long time, it has been in all forums, we have been talking about 2 or 3 needs for SME, which still remains. One is the adequate capital. Second thing is about what is the reason for this lack of funds. It brings the trust factor. SMEs in India are now into an evaluation stage. They are evolving. And just to put a proof to it, we already talk about SME as a risky asset class, where banks and NBFCs are slightly skeptical or reluctant to give them loans because they think that it might turn into a bad loan.
And you know, you bring up a wonderful point about mindset, as was raised in the conversation earlier. And you know, Raipur seems to be home to hundreds of family-owned and operated multi-generation businesses. And yet, a change that I'm seeing in mindset is that the next generation isn't always interested in joining that family business, for perhaps a variety of reasons. But Tulika, I would like your input on what you would say or how you would advise an SME that may be sitting in this very audience on a scenario like that.
Many of the people, the young generation, they don't like to join the traditional thing. They don't find glamour. They don't find, that showbiz into it. So they like to switch to something which looks good. Instead of creating job opportunities and all that, we should promote more self-employment to the young generation.
There's been so much talk nationwide about Naya Raipur. And what I'd like to understand from you is that has it actually lived up to its hype?
With Naya Raipur, what has happened is NRDA has been working. Now it has been renamed to Achal Nagar. But in any case, they have been working since quite a lot of time. They have tried to create all those buildings there, the whole infrastructure there and everything there. But just because government wants it to create as a new city, until and unless there's no private interest. I mean, until and unless you and me, we don't go there and buy land there or build buildings there, it is not going to grow. The whole point is, Naya Raipur has come at a time Raipur is growing anyways, but it is not growing that at that speed that we would need another city. So in that case, I think with Naya Raipur, it'll take, I believe, one more decade, maybe 1.5 decades to grow to that level. But in time, I think, given the whole model and everything, it would come up. But not the right time. Everything has a time, and I think Naya Raipur's time is not yet here.
A lot of MNCs have decided to set up shop here in Raipur or in Naya Raipur. And what I'd like to understand is, for the technology-flavored small and medium enterprises, does that pose an opportunity or a threat?
It creates more opportunities because we learn. When something big, something, which comes from the metro, that metro touch is there, that big store is there, then we get to learn a lot from them. And I don't think there is anything to be scared or be afraid about.
So if it does create opportunities, what sort of opportunities are there? Are there opportunities to undercut MNCs on price? Are there opportunities to partner with them? Are they looking to outsource part of their development efforts, which creates an opportunity for an SME and opens up a door for an SME? If everyone has to coexist in this ecosystem, the question becomes how?
When they come into this market, we have been into this market for a couple of years now. We understand the ecosystem, we understand the available talent right now. So in that case, when they come here, instead of investing this whole time, they would actually want us to maybe help them out. Because I'll just give you a small example. So when we're talking about talent and hiring, so when we hire for our company, we have to actually shift through 45 resumes before we can hire one employee. Now, that is not something that you do in Bangalore. In Bangalore, when you're doing it, you get maybe 12 or 15 resumes, and then you have to sort out because the options are a lot more. The kind of talent is better, the kind of skills are better, but this shifting mechanism, weeding out the bad resumes and getting the good ones, that is something that we have mastered for Raipur. So any company that comes here would be at a much better advantage if they, cooperate with us and work with us rather than, trying to figure out the whole thing that we have figured out in this last years.
So if someone holds your hand, they can hit the ground running, essentially.
Yes, exactly. It basically reduces the amount of time they would actually get to move. And that time is money, right? So if they would have been taken, let's say, 1 year to set up shop, with us, they can start doing it in 2 months if they come here. So that is something they're saving on time, and that is how they are also saving on the opportunity cost that they would be losing if it takes more time.
Now, special economic zones are mushrooming across Raipur. And, what I'd like to understand is what sort of luck has this city had in attracting outside investment? And I'll direct that to you, Professor.
As far as the Chattisgarh is concerned, there is a lot of, you can say, the resources available, forest resources are available, minerals are available. So ample opportunities are there for investment. But I think it's not properly tapped out. So that there is a need of tapping it out. Though the government is putting a lot of efforts for that, even then I think still some areas are left where we have to think about and attract for the investment in this area. And when we attract the investors and they are investing here and the industries are coming up, then all the problems related with the brain drain and all will be solved, because we'll be creating many jobs here in the state and Raipur city.
The numbers of Raipur in that regard, if I take an average of last 4 to 5 years, roughly at an average of only 200. So average of last 5 years would be 170 to 180. Only 170 to 180 SME units are being added. Registered SME units are being added in Raipur. Whereas this average industry-wide or country-wide would be many folds higher when we compare to Raipur.
Some great points. I'll touch on the first one, which was ease of doing business. And, according to the World Bank, India is, I believe, ranked 77th in terms of ease of doing business. We've climbed 23 notches this year alone. And, while that figure is promising, I think a lot of the on-ground realities tell a different story. And whenever I hear the phrase ease of doing business in India, you can't help but also think about the exact opposite, which is the ease of doing wrong business in India. The ease of doing business in a corrupt fashion in India. And I think that's, an entirely separate conversation. But I welcome some thoughts, some initial thoughts on that very topic from the panel. Because while we have outperformed in certain categories, whether it be access to a construction permit, for example, or method via which we pay taxes, in other areas like resolving insolvency or contract enforcement, the categories and our scores in it have barely budged. Achal, your thoughts?
Okay, so I think there are two questions intermixed in the single question. So I'll answer the first one when you were saying about, so all of us, especially in Raipur, so there's this concept of kacha and pakka. And I think all of the SMEs are aware of it. So as he was already saying, as Mohit was saying a while back, what companies do or what SMEs specifically do, so they are run by Lalajis and, the big bulging pay belly and then sitting there with the old business. So they have this thing, when we show the income tax or when we show that, so it's going to be a bad thing for us. So in that case, that shadow economy that exists, for SMEs specifically, it is very, very difficult to get them out of that zone. The changing that mindset to come from this black economy where you have certain aspects, certain sales of you in kacha, getting it to 100% pakka, that is difficult. So there are two things involved. First of all, the change of the mindset of the people themselves. And secondly, the easier you can do the whole transfer process. For example, GST, it was supposed to make things easier. And actually GST has made doing kacha things a bit more difficult. And as we keep on going, the shadow economy, the proportion of the shadow economy will keep on reducing, will shrink. And as that happens, I think we'll be able to move towards what he was saying, that more of a transparent and more of a pakka economy, what I would say.
Well, I think that made for a wonderful note to close on. There is clearly a lot of optimism surrounding the future prospects for Raipur in the context of a smart economy. And I have to thank all of our panelists for sharing so many anecdotes from their personal and professional journeys. A huge round of applause for them, please. I believe it's deeply deserved.
All right, that's our show tonight. If you have any feedback for us, here's how you get in touch. leadersoftomorrowtimesgroup.com is our email ID. Get in touch with us on social media, Nanda_J or LOT_ET Now. You can also reach us on Facebook, Leaders of Tomorrow on ET Now. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.